life experiences, hoping to always feel like I'm growing bigger, not smaller. That is like very, for me, I'm happy with the idea of that. I feel like I'm living my life.
This is Advice from Strangers, the podcast where we ask people we've never met to solve our most intimate problems. I'm your host, Bridget Kimbrough. Let's do this. Welcome back to another episode where I wrangle some strangers for good old-fashioned chit-chat. Here to help me this week is someone whose opinions constantly surprise me and whose presence always brings me joy. Katie G, how you
Hey,
doing, girl?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. So flattered by that intro as well.
Well, it could have been longer, but I feel like it said it all. And
Yeah.
when I was writing it, I was like, it's always good at people that aren't like exactly, you know what I mean, an echo chamber, right? So it's fun
Yeah.
to have people that you don't know what they're going to say or where they're going to fall. Like, that's fun.
Yeah, I actually had a similar conversation with some close friends of mine last night. And I think the feedback I get since I've been an adult is that, yeah, my opinions surprise people. And I'm always walking the edge of, oh, that's a different perspective to what the hell did you just say? But I also have a nice watery voice, is what literally someone told me this last night. You have a really nice voice. So you get away with saying a lot of things that a lot of people can't. I don't
That
know if
is
that's good or
very
bad.
true. Well, it's all in the delivery.
Yeah.
Somebody said that a couple episodes ago, and it is all in the delivery. And it is your voice, but it's also your delivery. So the way that you say it, it sounds like it's non-confrontational, obviously, because it's a non-confrontational confrontational conversation. But I don't know, you have like if there's a smoothness to it, your voice kind of sounds joyful. You know what I mean? And I think it just takes the edge off of like, oh wait, shit, is she crazy? Like
Exactly. No, I know my beliefs can be really far out and sometimes extremely mundane, but it feels like me every time I'm speaking. So I think my measure of what is okay to say sometimes is like a little bit off. It hasn't gotten me like in big trouble yet though, so we'll see.
Just to start out, how you doing this morning?
Oh, I'm great. Let's see. I had my double espresso. Honestly, so my husband and I, we inherited this really nice espresso machine from an old job he had, and it's changed my life. I don't drink coffee anymore. I just do double espressos. So I feel great about that. I had a nice walk through my front garden, which was lovely, and just kind of cruising into the Sunday, this beautiful Sunday that we have. That's kind of how I'm doing.
That sounds like you're really doing Sunday right. I have a couple of issues, and one is like I never drank coffee, so I'm really annoyed that I want it now. I was just getting like an afternoon treat, and then the lady told me that the nitro cold brews are like way stronger than espresso.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, let me try that. That actually works for me. So when I say I drink a coffee in the morning, it's kind of got to be that.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I'll get a grande and I'll drink half of it. That works.
I can't do a nitro, or there's some coffee shops around in town here where like their coffee just totally messes me up. I'm like shaken. I've never had the experience of like, I didn't feel that.
I literally just went, I wish. Like, let's just shake this thing.
There's a thrill. There is a thrill to shaking. I will admit that. You really feel the high and you're like, what do I do with all this energy? It's an interesting position to be in if you have the time for that.
I started Wegovy, and so far it's been like a total ripoff. Like, it's not doing it. Same thing. It's not doing anything. And so, literally today, like as I was doing it, I had the thought like, oh my God, is it bad that like, I'm like, ooh, I hope I get like the grinds.
I totally understand that. So you're more excited by the possibility of a rush than like a sedation.
I I am more excited by the idea that it's like a non-addictive, like crack cocaine.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah.
Totally get it.
Yeah. Where
Yeah.
I'm like, one of those girls, somebody from the big 80s. I want to be in the big 80s and let's get me some bangs and I'm going to put
Hell
on some blue
yeah.
eyeshadow and I'm just
Oh,
going to
yeah.
86 food altogether. Okay, I did write one question for you.
Okay.
Which is, so in this advice scenario,
Yeah.
and we just talked about you expressing opinions, and I feel like you're free to express them, like you don't put them upon people, but you're a conversationalist, you engage. I love it. Where do you get your advice when you want other words in your
Oh.
head?
Well, it depends on what kind of advice. Yeah, let's see. It's a combination of familiars and strangers because I do think there's a special role for strangers. For advice on like esoteric things, that's my mom for sure. That's where that comes from. If you're ever wondering why I'm weird, it's my mom mostly. Um, and if I'm looking for like girlfriend advice, I go typically to my girlfriends. If I'm looking for car advice, I go to my husband. I just go to the people who I think are the experts. For new ventures, if it's not something I'm ready to talk about in depth yet, or I don't have a strong opinion on it, or I'm just like generally curious, I'll always go to the internet and the algorithm turns that shit right back around to you. So I give it a couple days to marinate and then I get, inundated on social media with people and their random opinions. But
Okay,
that's what I do, I think.
Is that exploratory? Are you researching what you think, or are you kind of trying to find out what the general populace is thinking on a topic?
Generally the latter.
The latter.
I want to
Okay.
know what people are saying. I'd like to know where I stand in the group. Like a little self-awareness first, is to be like, so when I ask this question or I reveal what I do or don't know about it, where am I going to land? How am I going to be perceived in a way, And I don't do that exhaustively. I don't care that much, but that's a nice grounding exercise for me to know like where I'm coming from according to other people.
I'm that way. And like it's like if you've never discussed a topic, you don't think of it as a topic. So like the first time I actually observed a friend of mine kind of going to the internet to figure out what she thought about a thing, I was like, the fuck are you doing? Like, that's so weird because that's the opposite. Because I'm like, well, I want to figure it out before I let the world in.
Yeah, I think before I seek the public's opinion at large, I do already know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And I will look to get a further context about like, so I don't come off as a buffoon or anything, or I'm blindsided by like, if someone were to come back to me and be like, "Oh, you're that type of person," at least I'm prepared for that. Yeah, I'm that type of person, or whatever. But I do feel confident in knowing how I feel about something before I have outside input.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that feels too scary, honestly, to be like, I don't know how I feel. Tell me, how do I feel? Like, and I know a lot of people do that, but it's like, what do you mean?
It makes sense that like some people are this way and some people are that way. I just never thought about it. I just, you just assume everybody's brain and whatever you're doing is just kind of like the norm until you see it. Okay. On that topic, because our guest is in the hopper.
Yay!
So segueing off of advice, Katie G, your topics are, is it too late to start Kegling? Is it time to lower my standards? How do I start over without starting over? How will I know when I'm happy? Or what's the key to life?
Wow. Okay. That was a range, Bridget.
It's
Some
a
of those I
range.
felt like really emotional about, and others I was like having a good chuckle. Okay. Wow. Maybe the fourth one. How do I know if I'm happy or when I'm happy? Sorry.
When I'm happy. How do I know when I'm happy?
Yeah, let's do that one.
Okay. All right. We're going to bring in our guest right now.
Backward. Hello.
Andrew, this is Katie.
Hello.
Katie, this is Andrew.
Hi,
Hi,
Andrew. Nice
Katie.
to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Thank you for patiently waiting.
Wait. Thank you for having me.
So, Andrew, thank you for being game for surprises.
Thank you.
Katie has made a selection of our topic this morning, and she is going with, how will I know when I'm happy?
Oh.
Okay. You're welcome, Andrew.
Yeah.
Tell us what to do.
How will I know when I'm happy? Gosh, that's a toughie because it's such an elusive concept, happiness. And I'm not sure that I believe in it.
Oh.
So you won't. The end. No. Short episode. Sorry. I guess it depends on how you define happiness. Personally, increasingly, there's a series of kind of quotes and ideas and adages that I have collected over the years that I personally respond to. And some years ago, I read a quote who I don't even remember who said it. I'm sorry to not be able to credit, but it said that happiness is progress. And that personally, when I see progress in my life, professionally, creatively, spiritually, emotionally, in any way that I see improvement, progress, it gives me a sense of satisfaction and contentment with living that I would say is a baseline happy state. So, me, when I define happiness, it's a sense of progress. And conversely, when I'm not making any progress and I feel stymied or sandbagged or blocked or just nothing's happening, then I'm very unhappy. I'm itchy, I'm frustrated. So the question is, how will I know when I'm happy? I mean, to me, is that the question, or did I lose the thread?
No, that's the question.
Okay, how will I know when I'm happy? Well, I mean, on the one hand, you would think that would be self-evident, like, oh, I'm happy, but then on the other, because we don't even know that that's really a sustainable state. I mean, I think it's sort of a mythology in a way, and yeah. So I can only answer that personally. Happiness is a sustained sense of satisfaction with one's progress in life.
That's beautiful. I think I agree in many parts with what you just said, actually.
Okay. And if you disagree, speak up. I'm happy to hear
it. What do you think, Bridget?
So, I mean, the thing with happiness, the problem with happiness is exactly what Andrew's saying, right? Like, do we have any proof that it's a sustainable state of being? Yeah. And it's one of those words that's just been just bastardized at this point, that like it feels like total bullshit.
Yeah. Or that
to seek happiness, or that happiness is for fools. I don't know. It sounds like a thing for children. Mm-hmm. And then you are and so there's two ways to look at happy. Andrew interpreted it as like this state of being, like kind of like, how will I know when I'm happy versus when I'm just content or it's just Tuesday, right? And I kind of meant it as an end goal. Like, how will I know when I get to happiness? Because it's like this thing that it's like we're working to or working towards, right? And it's like, oh, well, now I'm. Go ahead.
A dangling carrot, right?
Yeah, a dangling carrot. And like, it's kind of, sure, culturally, whatever the steps are between here and happiness might be different. But it's like I bought a place, or I got this gig, or like you acquired this thing that got you to it. So it kind of meant it in that forward aspirational dangling carrot way. But either way, it seems like it's elusive.
I think transient is, I mean, like the best case scenario is that you will have moments of happiness, but they are by nature transient and you cannot hold them forever, like every other quality of living, you know. Mm-hmm. Everything comes and goes. So, but we seem to have some mythology like, if I check off these boxes, you know, I will be happy, etc., which I don't know that we're built to ever be able to have that prolonged experience.
Yeah, that what you just said about being transient is exactly what I believe. I think like all states of being, you're meant to flow in and flow out. It's not an end goal where you go step 1, step 2, step 3, get my ducks in a row, and then I achieve happiness and hold on to it. I don't think that's how life or the universe actually functions. And that's the dangling carrot of it all, is that like, that's not actually achievable. And the entire like paradigm around that doesn't match the lived experience. So it becomes this very frustrating, like, oh my God, am I happy? I did all the right things, but I don't feel the way I thought I was going to feel. I think happiness in some ways for me too is contentness or peace. It can be like equated to those feelings. And I think it's connected to presence of mind. So I think that people who tend to practice like mindfulness and just being present in the moments, those are the people who really experience the richness of happiness, and they feel it come in, and they don't hold on to it. They let it go. They know it's going to happen again. They're not afraid of whatever might come through in that stream of experiences. But that's a really like, that's the relationship to happiness that I think is actually achievable and the most fulfilling.
I think, I agree. I think that also our relation to happiness is also subtly defined by our relation to unhappiness, and whether we're willing to accept it, if we are conditioned to feel some kind of shame because we've failed to achieve something. You know, in the Buddhist tradition, there's this sort of idea of non-preference and the full potential of life as a spiritual experience, and shit or roses. Like, you know, it's all of it. You take all of it ideally without any preference, you know, and you learn from each experience and you awaken to each experience. So there's no grasping or clinging to the positive versus the negative. It's all sort of equal. And you know, the idea of how you accept unhappiness, or what we would consider unhappiness, is, I think that's part of the relationship as well. You know, I'm not saying I have an answer. I'm just saying that I think that's part of the equation, you know?
Yeah. For me too, like I was talking, I think that it's like defining the word, because I have a problem with the word. Like, it's kind of what I was starting to say. And you know, everybody says it and I'm so sick of hearing it, but joyful feels like a different state, right? That maybe because up until now, we, like, at least like our American culture, we didn't have a lot of stuff attached to it. So I can let that word, it feels a little more based in reality of emotion, whereas like happy feels like a little more like put on. And to me, joy can more easily, joy immediately translates into peace and serenity, right? It doesn't have to have that energy behind it. That's like happy, you know what I mean? Like, and at the end of the day, yes.
Wait, I thought we were liking that feeling, or before you came on, Angela, we were talking about having sugar rushes and whatnot.
Yeah. For a minute, let's do it. But recognizing, because so, you know, I think too, it's like a setup when people are like, "Are you happy right now?" You know, when was the last time you were happy? I feel like that question is a setup because that word is not right. And if
Well,
you asked the same, like, joyful, it's kind of understood as a moment. And I feel like happy is supposed to be considered a state. And that moment of joy could have been 5 minutes at a thing, and that counts. Whereas, like, it's, you know what I mean? You expect like a bigger, I don't know, time period or whatever for it. And us being able to recognize all the moments of happiness, then it's like, I think that's what gratefulness is like, when you start pointing it out to yourself, you're like, oh, actually, I'm whatever way more often than I would have told you I am. Or really like being grateful for the moments that you are, because it's actually just occurring as like serenity or peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to wonder though about being asked if one is happy, in that the person asking, I mean, what are they going to do one way or the other? You know, I mean, what business, not to say what business is it of yours, but like, what if I'm not? Can you help? No. You know, do you need to know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just specifically, it brings to mind an experience I had some years ago where I was working in a restaurant with a very kind of well-heeled clientele, and there were two gentlemen having some sort of engaged discussion, and one of them, as an aside, I think maybe to illustrate some point to his companion in conversation, asked me if I was happy. And I remember thinking it was such an absurd question to ask of someone that you don't even know or are acquainted with, other than beyond the superficial manners of a high-end restaurant service position relationship, and that I was sort of taken aback, and I didn't really know how to answer it, because I thought it was kind of a weird question to ask someone you don't know. And I just sort of answered bluntly, no, and I don't think happiness is relevant, which was not the answer he was looking for, to illustrate. But I remember just thinking, what a tool to be asking these, he's having some $200 a person dinner, and he's asking these basically low paid, ish workers who do not have that option in life, whether they're happy or not. It was very shades of let them eat cake. It was just sort of like, oh, you're so disconnected. Like, even the idea of having a dialogue about whether you're happy seems like it could be a first world problem. So I was just like, no, I'm not happy. And I don't have the luxury of worrying about it, because I have to take care of business, which might inform my sense of progress as happiness, and that the more I can take care of business, the better off I am. That's where I'm at. I don't know. I guess I'm not happy.
Well, the happiness is progress. I like, in looking for a job, I'm like, I know the things I need in a job, and one of them is to constantly be learning, because those are the things that, like, in a job make me happy. I need to be learning and growing. And so it makes sense that, like, those things are fundamentally connected, because if you feel like you're growing and expanding, then that creates joy in and of itself.
Well, I see it actually increasingly more as a full expression in all regards of life. I every day I wake up, I have coffee, I make art, I seek to increase my expression artistically. I write, I seek to come to full expression in that regard. Professionally, the same. It's about the progress in the sense of coming to your fullest expression in life. That's sort of underlined under. That's, I mean, no. That sort of is. It sort of gets at what I feel I I attach that sense of happiness to, that sense of progress. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, in that regard, I think I've also felt at times when I was actually like sad or troubled is a weird word to use, but like something's going on in my life that's like inconvenient or challenging or whatever. But also in those moments, recognizing that in I'm not saying this happens every time, but I've been in situations where I've been challenged, but also recognizing that the challenge is kind of broadening my experience of life, and that it's maybe I'm going through a change, and change is challenging, but the change is kind of bringing me to a place I want to go. And if I have that perspective, I feel like a deep happiness at that moment, even though my emotional state is not predominantly positive even, but there's like a gratefulness in it. There's that deep sense of happiness. And I think, I mean, I agree with you, Bridget, that the word happy is kind of like wrecked and bastardized, at least in our culture, because just because of like how we use it and how it's used in a commercial sense, and the promise of happiness and things that, like you said, Andrew, people can't give you happiness, right? Yeah. And why it's so incredibly cringy or actually creepy when someone promises you happiness. Like, we can finally you can be happy. It's like, get the fuck out of my face. Snake.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I think I have to wonder, I don't think we're built for happiness, because I think we live in this blip in the history of humanity, where we live in an industrialized society, which gives us a lot of extra time, and convenience. But historically, as hunter gatherers, I don't think that if we were designed to sit around in unmotivated contentment, that we would have lasted.
Right.
Like we wouldn't have survived. It's constantly a sort of struggle. And yeah, so when there's something about the whole idea that I think it's a little problematic, in that I don't know that it's like we've been led to believe it should be a thing, but it isn't a thing, or it'll never be a thing.
Yeah, I was just thinking, maybe the question is, should we be happy? Like, is that something you should be? And if you're not,
You mean that you should, are you asking that you should strive to be, or
yeah,
that,
yeah.
yeah.
Is that something to strive for, or would you rather strive for like joyful moments and fulfillment and whatever, however, whatever you might fill that in with? But yeah, I think there's like the unspoken thing that people should be happy. And then to further complicate it, happiness is XYZ, and no one's able to answer that simply for a reason.
Well, and historically, there's been a lot of social pressure to pretend like you are,
Yes.
whether you are or not, that you shouldn't let people know that you aren't happy or have problems, or you should, behave in a certain way that would indicate that. So,
right.
I
Yeah.
don't
Appear
know.
happy to keep the social order, basically.
It's a pretty good question, because it touches on a lot, I mean, it is kind of mysterious in the elusiveness, and that, I mean, everybody has the idea that they want to be, but I don't know that anybody is.
I do think, Andrew, you said like looking at it in relation to unhappiness, and I think I do think it's the problem. I think that if you're looking at happiness not in relationship to its opposite, then your metric is skewed, and it's not getting credit. All your moments of happiness are not actually getting credited as that, because they're just getting overlooked, or they're getting lost in the shuffle because it didn't last long enough for you to count it. You know what I mean? And it wasn't attached. So like a birthday or a thing that like to expect. And then again, right, there are these like dates, literal hard like dates on a calendar, that it's expected to be there. And then it's so much worse if it's not, because we need to be just kind of gauging it, right? If it's transient and it comes and goes, we need to give it credit when it's there. But in order to give it credit, we have to recognize it.
Yeah.
And that's I think that word. So great. Do we get to introduce the word happy as problematic into this culture? I would like, as someone who is, probably problematic, I would like to introduce something into that scope.
Yeah.
For fucking once, I would like to be on the other side. I'd like to be on the other foot. But I think it's totally natural. Like, we need it, right? Like, we need joy. It's just the setup. And
well, I mean, we have joy. We have joy. Joy is part of our natural sphere of, or a range of human experience, and it's terrific. We love it, but you can't have it every day, all day long. And
boo.
Sorry to burst your bubble, but
with enough caffeine, Andrew.
yeah, no. I don't know. I feel like I've had some chapters in life where I had more of it than not, and I was even sort of surprised by it. But I look back on, I could say that it was because I had the sense that my life was really moving in a direction that excited me, which I could distill down to that sense of progress, that I spoke of earlier, which I should probably, maybe I could Google who actually said that, just for the sake of.
You going to give us a credit?
I'm going to try. I think it's the thing to do.
KDG, while he's Googling, when's the last time you were happy?
This morning when I was in my garden with my espresso. I'm happy right now because I feel joyful. Yeah, coming back to, I feel generally happy. Not everything is perfect in my life.
I am so sorry I Googled that.
Who's it credited to?
I am humiliated.
Is it Vanilla Ice?
Maybe worse. It's Tony Robbins.
That's fantastic. And you know what? That sounds just like Tony.
It does. That's why I agree with it. Yeah.
All right. So yes, it says, okay, the AI overview, according to Google, says Tony Robbins has said that, quote, progress equals happiness, and that making progress is the key to long-term joy and fulfillment. While achieving goals can be satisfying, it's only temporary. Progress can be defined as accomplishing things, meeting targets, or reaching deadlines. Okay, so that is not exactly my interpretation, but there is a Venn diagram of my sense and Tony's sense that meets in the sense that just seeing things move for the better and for one's, fulfillment and achievement is a great feeling, and it makes you like being alive. So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, so you can, if you want to back up and edit that whole Google part out, you can.
Leave it in.
Oh, well. All right.
Good Tony's flowers.
I
was thinking too, Andrew, since the first time you said it, I think you said progress, and I'm wondering, what does that mean as well? Not to open a whole nother can of worms here, but
well, to me, that would be that increased expression, that I spoke of before. Like I do yoga to reach my fullest physical expression. The art I consider a visual yoga, creativity, my fullest creative expression. In everything I do, I think I'm just always looking to. I don't want to sound like Tony Robbins and take it to the max, but to like some kind
take it to the max, Andrew.
Yeah, to the max. Extreme expression. I'm just looking for to see what I can do. Isn't that life? Don't you want to see what you can do, while you can do it?
Yeah. Yeah. I've always, I think like you, I associate happiness let me start over. But like you, I yearn to have like a fuller experience of life. Like that to me is progress, not necessarily material things. There are like goals that I would like to meet, financial goals, like achievements and things like that, just that really pertain to my external life. But much of progress is really for me defined by my internal, my personal experience, like a spiritual experience even, but just like I yearn to have a range of life experiences and good and bad, with the caveat that I'm not hoping for anything traumatic, nothing I can really process, but I will take a range of really negative experiences too, because I think that you really just get to know yourself. Like I yearn to know myself better, and you achieve that through like deep life experiences, hoping to always feel like I'm growing bigger, not smaller. That is like for me, I'm happy with the idea of that. I feel like I'm living my life. And it's not about thrill seeking necessarily. When I was younger, it was very attached to thrill seeking specifically.
Really?
But in my elder years, I've really slowed down a lot. And I really just like love being slow and like just like staring at a plant for like 20 minutes at a time. Like I actually did, that's what Bridget, when I say I was walking in my garden, that's actually what I was doing. I was just like sitting and looking at things. That makes me really, really fulfilled. There's like a quietness in that too, so, but I want the thrills and I want those moments that are pretty mundane and quiet too.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that. That reminds me of a line I read. I think it was in Huxley's The Doors of Perception, which I read as a teenager back back a while back, when you would want to, experiment with psychedelics and read, The Doors of Perception, which is what, the Doors, the band, took their name from that book, which he had written about experimenting with, I don't remember if it was acid or what it was, but there was a line where he talked about seeing and how you saw differently and I think it basically, he was like, how happy we would be if we could content ourselves to simply sit and see, the world as it is, and whatever's in our face as it is. So just that sense of, I guess, wonder or appreciation, or the need to not lay anything on what's in front of us. I'm not going anywhere in particular with that. I'm just saying that what you said reminds me of that line of just like looking at a plant, staring at a plant for 20 minutes, and the happiness of that would be, or I hate to say happiness since it's such a loaded word, but the contentment. Sure. Interesting.
Yeah. Like saying that everything you need for that joy or fulfillment is already here.
Yeah.
So everything you need, we already have. And it's just up to us to see it and recognize it and validate it.
And not hang on to it. Because
yeah.
we already know that it's transient and it won't last. But it will come again. Maybe.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, I mean, did you choose that question as the topic today because you are not happy, or you've been thinking deeply about it, or? I mean, I don't want to be intrusive, but it, and am I allowed to ask what the other topics were in the pass or play scenario?
Yeah. You want to hear what the other ones were?
Yes, ma'am.
Before Katie answers that. Yeah.
Okay.
So her topics to choose from were, I was really hoping she'd pick number one because she didn't know. I tell nothing about the person, and I try not to say their name so that I don't even gender who the stranger will be. So actually topic one was, is it too late to start Kugels? Just because,
yeah, I have nothing to say on that one.
That's not true. That's not true. I mean, because they all open up to broader topics, but also like...
I suspect that when I hear Kegel, I mostly think of like some sort of noodle casserole from the Jewish culinary tradition.
Oh, a noodle kugel. See, and boom. Conversation started. That's what I'm saying, Andrew.
And the hilarity ensues. Yes.
See,
so no, it's not too late to start noodle kugeling. Go for it.
So number two was, is it too late to lower my standards? Or sorry, is it time? Not too late. Sorry, is it? It's never too late.
Yeah, you'll have plenty of opportunity.
Girl, you can do it anytime you want. Sorry, is it time to lower my standards? Number 3, how do I start over without starting over? Number 4, how will I know when I'm happy? And number 5, what's the key to life?
So the structure, those questions were just ones you put up there, and then Katie
I just make them up.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, all right. I'm gonna do my goodbyes, for the thing, and then
question. Of the 7 so far, has anyone chosen the Noodle Kugel question?
No one will pick the freaking Kegel, and I'm leaving it in there. It might be the bonus episode where I pick, so that I can get Kegeling on the table, because come on, that's going to be the best episode. Yeah. after the God one, it's going to be the best episode. Okay, you guys, we did it. Thank you so much for coming and doing this with me.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to meet you, Andrew.
You too, Katie. You too.
Thank you to our co-host this week, Katie Gwynn. Katie Gwynn Saxon is a professional brand designer and Atlanta-based alien enthusiast. And thank you to my guest, Andrew Sutter, author of the book Lady Party, Notes on Hospitality. Andrew is a low-key Renaissance man. Katie G and Andrew had never met, heard each other's names, or seen each other's faces before this recording.